Hey guys, Josh here from Sportitude Running, and it's shoe review time, and we're going to be talking all things carbon plate race shoes and our top 5 for 2021. Now, I have done a in-depth carbon plated review earlier this year, around 6 months ago, where we've sort of looked at the holistic approach to carbon plate shoes, why they even exist, and a little bit more detail about those super foams. And for all of that information, we'll drop the link to that video down below. But we're now almost at the end of 2021, and I think it's a great time to look at the year that has been and to grab our top 5 and bring it to you, the running community, all around Australia and the world. So, pretty obvious, to fall into this category, you need to have a carbon plate. Simple as that. And also, the other thing that we've accumulated over this time frame is some feedback from our customers, be it road runners from 10Ks, half marathon and the marathon distance, and also took in some data from the triathlon community out there as well. So again, anything from an Olympic distance triathlon right up to the Ironman distance as well. So we've accumulated all that feedback, some feedback from our staff members downstairs, and we also took into consideration our Run DNA technology, which is using RunScribe pods to analyze how someone moves within a race shoe. So with all of that data, we came to this position right now where I've got 5 shoes in front of me, which we're going to jump into with today's review. However, stick around because at the end I do have one extra shoe I'd like to talk about, which technically does fall into this category, but it's a little bit different. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So the first shoe we're going to talk about is the New Balance RC Elite 2. Now, this shoe here had quite the update from its first version. They increased the stack height, so just under that World Athletics approval of 40 millimeters, so 39 in the heel and a 31 in the forefoot for that variance of 8 millimeters. The fuel cell technology underneath the foot is really soft. It's incredibly squishy, get a lot of compression, which then engages that carbon plate and creates a very snappy propulsive feel through the forefoot. So by increasing the stack height from its first iteration, New Balance were able to get a little bit more aggressive with regards to the dip of that carbon plate. So again, full length carbon plate, heel to toe, and from around about where my finger sits through here, that dip does get down nice and low through to the forefoot, which creates that really snappy propulsive feel. The one thing we found with this shoe specifically is it's a little bit more dialed in up top. So we found it a very popular shoe for the triathlete market out there. Main reason being is it's an easy shoe to get on your foot in transition, so T2, with regards to this little Achilles flare at the back. You can obviously put in your elastic lace if need be, and the eyelets and everything around this construction of the upper is a little bit more supportive than some of the other models out there. So again, a great shoe, great update. It's been very well received out there, and that is why it sort of makes our top 5. The next shoe we're going to talk about is a model that hasn't had much change from its first version, and they threw in a little iteration of the shoe itself. So in my hand, I hold the Endorphin Pro 2. So Saucony's premium race day shoe. It's a slightly lower stack. We're talking 35.5 heel and a 27.5 forefoot. So you're a little bit closer to the ground. Saucony used their Power Run PB, which is essentially their super foam. It's not quite as soft as your ZoomX from Nike and also your Fuel Cell from New Balance, but that's not a bad thing because it's talking to a slightly different runner, a runner that wants a little bit more of a firmer feel but is really looking for that snappy propulsive feel, which is what you get from that carbon plate injected inside this midsole. And just recently, Saucony did launch the Endorphin Pro 2 Plus, or Plus 2. So now I'm going to ask that you consider these two as one. Now, the reason I say that is because they are so similar. The midsole, the outsole, the carbon plate engineering, everything is the same. The only adjustment is the upper in the Pro Plus 2 is marginally lighter. So for men's size 9, we dropped down to around 195 grams. And in a men's size 9 in the Endorphin Pro 2, we're around that sort of 208-ish grams in weight. Now that's obviously using our scales. So the biggest change was the weight reduction in the both shoes through here. Now we've done heaps of testing downstairs and compared this little guy and this little guy here. And the feedback was pretty similar. For some runners that need a little bit more of a lockdown, especially over that arch area, they would prefer the Endorphin Pro 2. But for that person who's maybe slightly more biomechanically efficient, just searching for that really light fit and feel, more of like a spike feel on top of the foot, then the Endorphin Pro Plus 2 has been the shoe of choice for that runner downstairs. Okay guys, next shoe in our review is none other than the Asics Metaspeed Sky and the Metaspeed Edge. Now, Again, they look absolutely near on identical, but there is a bit of a variance between the two of them. So we are asking that we treat these two shoes as one in today's review. So the variances between both of them is more to do with the stack height and the heel to toe drop. So if we're talking about the Metaspeed Sky, there is a marginal variance between men's and women's, but the men's stack is 33 mil in the heel and 28 in the forefoot for a variance of 5 mil, and the ladies is 31.26. When we talk about the edge, now it's a slightly lower stack, so a little bit less shoe under your body. So we've got 29 in the heel, 21 in the forefoot, 8 mil drop for a men's, and then we have 28.20. So there's that 1 millimeter variance between men's and women's with this shoe. And you may be asking at home, well, why have a shoe like this with a high heel to toe drop, lower stack versus a lower stack, higher stack, lower heel to toe drop? It's a bit confusing when I explain it like that. But essentially, Asics launched both of these shoes at the same time, and we're talking about a runner that has a slightly higher cadence that would be leaning towards the Metaspeed Edge versus someone who has a slightly lower cadence, however, is probably hitting the ground with a little bit more force under their body to get that compression through that softer foam to generate that propulsive feel through the forefoot. So again, the feedback we had downstairs is this is probably more dialed in for someone in that 5 to 10K road market, even up to a half marathon. We're talking Metaspeed Edge. And then we found the Metaspeed Sky to be a really successful one for both 10Ks, but more dialing in for that half marathon to full marathon distance. And also a lot of success with this shoe in that triathlon community again. Main reason being is the lacing system is nice and dialed in, keeping that foot on top of that platform. However, the surface area has probably been the biggest advantage for a lot of triathletes. Now, when we're talking about triathlon, the third discipline of all is the run leg, and we're usually pretty fatigued from the swim and the bike, be it Olympic distance, half Ironman, or a full Ironman distance where you're trying to complete the race with a marathon at the end. So having a little bit more surface area, really good coverage with regards to the outsole, it does provide a pretty stable base underneath the foot for when the body is sort of fatiguing a little bit and requiring that, that little bit more support if you can get it from a racing flat. The other thing to note is this shoe here, the Metaspeed Sky and the Metaspeed Edge, are stiff. And what I mean by that is the actual carbon plate is a little bit thicker and it's a little bit more rigid through the actual construction of the shoe in comparison to all the others we're going to go through in today's review. So that in itself actually put this as a shoe that has a marginal point of difference. So for someone who can hit the ground a bit harder and provide a little bit more of an explosive feel through the foot, the Metaspeed Sky with that carbon plate technology has worked very, very well. Incredibly lightweight shoe, coming in at 195 grams in a men's size 9 and 165 for a ladies size 7, and in the Edge 190 to 160. So that 5 gram variance both in regards to Sky and Edge. Okay guys, the fourth shoe in our review today is the Nike Alphafly Next Percent. Now, this is not new. This shoe's been around now for about 18 months, and it is a shoe that created a lot of hype, especially around the successful Ineos project when Kipchoge did break that 2-hour barrier. Obviously, everyone wanted to get their hands on this shoe. Now, what Nike had done with regards to where it had come from with the Next Percent is they put a lot underneath the foot. Now, we talk about a lot. We've got 2 Zoom bags, with carbon plate, ZoomX foam. There is a fair bit of engineering going on underneath the foot through here. Now, it's not the lightest out of the whole carbon plate shoes through here. We're talking around 210 grams for a men's size 9 and around 185 grams for a ladies size 7. So it's still very light. However, this shoe here is really pitching towards that runner that wants a really soft but propulsive system underneath their foot. And I would say it's probably targeting more your forefoot runner. If you happen to be a heel striker in this shoe, what we have seen is it doesn't work quite as well as some of the others underneath us through here today. But that being said, obviously it says in the fact on the side here, it's verified by world-class runners in the Nike lab. So therefore, all the testing, all the verification, all the validation on this shoe and what we see with the Next Percent is off of the essentially the creme de la creme, the top of the top, your elite runners, very efficient mechanical movers. So therefore, everything about this shoe is dialed in for those top tier runners. So when we see the runners coming through who are chasing PBs, recreation runners, still very, very fast runners, sometimes we have to take the blinkers off and look in other lanes, because this may not be the shoe that's going to dial in for you, and it may not be the shoe that you're going to chase down your PBs with success. Last but not least, this would not be a top 5 carbon plate shoe if I did not talk all things Nike Next Percent version 2. Now, purely based on participation or shoes on feet in the carbon plate category, this is number 1 globally, and it's number 1 by a country mile. This shoe here had a big head start on the whole industry itself, and that was off the back of the 4%, which we saw around 2017 with that first breaking 2 attempt from Kipchoge and the crew. And then ever since then, we saw version 1 in the Next Percent come through, and then we have version 2 in our hand through here. The Atom Knit upper, which is essentially off of what they have in the Alphafly as well, is a very, very light, very breathable upper. This shoe here is a very fast shoe, coming in at around 195 grams in a men's size 9, and we're talking around that 165 grams in a ladies size 7, and a pretty generous stack height too, and an 8mm heel to toe drop, so 40mm heel, 32 forefoot for that 8mm offset. Now, when we're talking Next Percent, we really are having that conversation about those really dialed in, very biomechanically sound runners. The main reason we say that is because the shoe itself doesn't have a very wide platform. A lot of the landing area is relatively narrow, but the main reason Nike have done that is to reduce weight and get that carbon plate engaged and the runner really propelling through that forefoot. So you're talking about, again, as I said a minute ago, it's all about that really elite, that really efficient runner that's going to find success in this shoe. Interesting note, because the upper of this shoe is really minimalistic, it is a little bit fiddly to get it on the foot, so you have to take your time, make sure your sock's sitting right, the sort of anatomical lacing system as it comes down to the lateral side, left and right side, and the heel counter being a little bit lighter on. Yeah, you want to take your time getting it on the foot and making sure that all the bumps and creases are in the right areas. So therefore, with that being said, it's not the most popular shoe for triathlon. Now, I still see a lot of these out on the triathlon circuit, and the main reason being is it's more to do with the performance underneath the foot. However, T2 can be a little bit long if you're having a Next Percent in your rotation, and getting your foot inside this shoe and making it comfortable before you get out onto your run leg can be a little bit time consuming. So what we have found in the discussions we've had with a lot of triathletes that come through, be it Olympic distance, your 70.3 athletes or your Ironman athletes, is we tend to find, okay, what's going to make you a better runner? Is it going to be an RC Elite, which we have found incredibly popular for that triathlon community because it performs incredibly well. It's got a more sound heel counter. It's a lot easier to get on. An elastic lace system slips in nice and comfortably inside that shoe. And also the Metaspeed Sky from Asics. Again, a very, very light shoe, but it is a little bit more dialed in for, we believe, that triathlon runner. Not discrediting this shoe, because I said in the intro, it is the most popular in terms of market share across the carbon plate industry around the world. So obviously Nike have got it right, and there's a lot of runners out there that are getting along with this shoe, and that will be the case for the next iteration of the Next Percent, which we will see coming through in the next 12 months. Now, I know I've gone through the top 5, but as I said in the intro, there is a special mention to a shoe that I'm going to bring up slowly in front of the camera here. I'm holding the Hoka Bondi X. Yes, this shoe is heavy. Yes, this shoe is generous in every aspect, being the stack height, the surface area. It has a full-length carbon plate, and the reason I wanted to just throw this into the conversation today is because it is a carbon-plated shoe. Yes, it's 300 grams in a men's size 9, and yes, it is what I would say a slightly, no, not even slightly, it is a more cushioned, stable carbon plate shoe in regards to all the others we've gone through today. Every single one that we have touched on, the Endorphin Pro series, the RC Elite, Next Percent, Metaspeeds, and also the Alpha, they are so light. They're very much dialed in, and they will be used for potentially anywhere between 10 to 5% of your whole running rotation pre your race day. This shoe here is incredibly versatile. You can use it for mileage running. You can obviously use it for race day as well. It's not going to be a shoe that you will see on the podium. Actually, I will probably sit here and put my house on it. You will never see this on a podium in any elite event, but it's going to be a shoe that's going to be extremely well received for a lot of runners. They just haven't been able to get along with the lightweight, minimalistic carbon plate shoes that have been on the market now for 5 years. Someone who wants that carbon plate fit and feel, but just needs that more protection, that more stability. Bondi X is going to be a shoe that I would certainly recommend. And I reckon this is going to be a shoe you will see out there on the Ironman circuit through 2022. Crazy cushioned, really stable, but you still get that little pop through the forefoot. The extended crash pad at the heel, the rocker sole, everything about it is dialed in for protection, but also a little bit extra push too underneath the foot, which is great. There you have it, guys. Top 5 plus 1 carbon plate shoes for 2021. This has been a fun little conversation, and we enjoy very much having to help people downstairs here at Sportitude Running chase those PBs and get themselves into a race day shoe. And the great thing about this is now there is, I believe, a carbon plate shoe for nearly every single runner out there, which is great. Everyone from your person who's just getting out there, rolling the legs over, Bondi X, right up to your Nexts and your Alphaflys, RC Elites, Endorphin Pros, and obviously your Metaspeed Skies, which have just landed mid-part of 2021. This category will continue to grow. Brands out there are going to keep pushing the boundaries, keep testing their engineering departments. So watch your space. This is by no means going to be a stagnant category. It's going to get better and better and better. There has to come a point in time where you can't make your shoes so light. You can't keep getting lighter and lighter and lighter every single year. So there'll be a lot why we believe that's going to be put into those midsoles and how they can better perform for you, the runners out there. So guys, if you've got any questions on the 5 shoes or plus 1 with the Bondi X, let us know in the comment section below. If I have missed a carbon plate shoe that you think should make this review, let us know. I'd love to hear all things footwear and what you guys are using all around the world. And until next time, guys, stay safe, be kind to one another, happy racing, and we will see you out the road. Take care.